Here we've got some other real data. This is the federal budget, spending from 1962 to 2014. So let's say hypothetically, we want to see the way that spending on the budget has changed between 1970 and 2014, just picking 2 years somewhat randomly. So here we want to not compare the total spending, but the proportion of spending. Like, where are we spending a bigger percentage of our dollars? So because we're looking at the proportion of a whole, a pie chart is going to be appropriate. So I can select the department, branch, or unit through row 30. We're just going to take that segment of our data. And I'm going to select 1970. So I've got those two non-contiguous ranges that I'm going to insert. And I'm going to look at pie charts. Regular pie is going to be fine. Super small. So we're going to want to make that bigger, most likely. And we'll want to title this appropriately. Federal Budget 1970. Okay, then we want to do the, click off to deselect everything. And we're going to do the same thing. Select rows 1 through 30 in column A. Then I want 2014, which just happens to be the last year that I have data for. So I'm going to select through row 30. So I can see that I've got 30 rows selected showing up there. So that's good. So I'm going to come back. I'm going to insert. Cancel. Click on the right icon. Insert another chart. And I'll call this Federal Budget 2014. Now, is this comparison any good? Let's take a look. I want to make them equally sized so I can compare things. Okay, so I've just lined them up so I could resize them. I want to make sure that they're, at least very close to the same size so I can do a, a somewhat accurate comparison. So let's just look for example. So 1970, if I just hover over this green area, for example, Department of Defense was 39% of the federal budget. So that's a big chunk, right? So we can see over in 2014, we can compare that Department of Defense was 15%. Now the absolute numbers have probably gone up quite a bit, but as a proportion of the total federal spending, we spend a smaller percentage of our federal budget on the Department of Defense. Let's look at what's grown. If we just compare the colors, so let's look over here. Department of Health and Human Services, 25% of the federal budget in 2014. If we look in 1970, Department of Health and Human Services was 8%. So that spending has grown quite a bit. So we can do this comparison. We can see, what's this yellow sliver? Department of Agriculture, 4%. 4% back in 1970. So it's a way just to kind of quickly see what slices of the pie are growing or changing. We can see that for some of these smaller slices, it's pretty hard to tell because there's a lot of different departments. Really the value in this chart as it exists right now is to look at the bigger slices of pie and see how those are changing.